Are you suppressing the dreams and things that you have been thinking about because you don't have the energy left because you've spent all day disassociating just to exist so you could get this paycheck? Transactional suppression. The challenge is not whether or not you need money to pay your bills. Of course you do. That's just a rational thought. Do you have to subject yourself to the transactional suppressing of your authenticity and calling in order to pay your bills? Is that your best life? You should really quit your job. I want you to consider that you should really quit your job. I want you to think about that thought for a moment in like the most sober-minded way possible and consider what I am saying. You should really quit your job. It's more than a suggestion, it's more like an admonishment. It's more like you don't have the real opportunity to ignore it or not consider that you should really quit your job. And I know that when somebody comes to you and says something like this, it's big and heavy and weighty, and I joke a lot and make a lot of, things, but I understand that the work we are talking about here is world shifting. It's soul shifting, honestly, to consider the notion that you should really quit your job. Here is kind of the rub. We spend a lot of time here talking about the corporate culture that is not really giving you a lot of choice. The problem here is that it's so normalized. Corporate trauma and the challenges that come along with trying to work in a workplace, the situations where people are overlooked, ignored, treated poorly, all of that is so normal that when I say to you, you should really quit your job, usually the first thing that comes up is, oh, it's not that bad. So this whole show is dedicated to kind of unearthing the stuff that sits on top of making that normal. It is not normal. Humans should not be mistreated. I had a thought when I was kind of jokingly talking on my Instagram page about what my TED Talk would be, and I'm not saying this isn't true, but my TED Talk would absolutely be the whole idea of aligned authenticity with productivity, right? So not just doing for the sake of doing, including your job. If you are working in an institution and at a position at a desk behind a computer that is misaligned from your calling and purposeful work, which by and large is the reason you are here, then you are just doing busy stuff. You're not actually being productive. And while that is not actually the entire point of this particular podcast, the real crux of this whole thing is that going to work for companies with the way that corporate culture is structured right now, where trauma is normal, leaving work beat down, brutalized internally is normal, not liking your job is normal, ignoring your dreams is normal, not pursuing your calling, all of that is normal. In this era where all of that is normal, you are essentially transactionalizing your calling and your authenticity. You are saying to somebody that it is okay for you to pay me for me to be less. It's okay that if you pay me, as long as you pay me enough, I'll be whatever you want me to be. And when I put it in those kinds of terms, it starts to feel offensive. And I'm not here to try to offend you. I'm here to unearth the layer of like acrylic that is sitting on top of the understanding that work is just work. It's just a job. It's just a paycheck. That is not so. This is your life. Work is a part of your life. Your bills are here to support the way that your life goes and the way that you experience that life every day. Yes, you have to pay a rent. Yes, you have to pay a mortgage if you choose one. Yes, you have to pay for a car if you choose one. Yes, those things are all very true. If you've got kids, you've got to pay their expenses. Nobody's trying to tell you not to pay your bills, right? Pay your bills. And also understand that you do have a choice around how those bills get paid. I put up a poll in my Instagram and I asked the question, how many of you have been thinking about quitting your jobs? 100% of the people that answered said yes. 100% of the people that answered said, I have been thinking about quitting my job. Yes, that is me, 100%. The secondary follow-up in the story trajectory was, well, why haven't you quit your job? Now there are reasons why you haven't quit. Somebody said, oh, I'm married. I have a wife and responsibilities. Okay, got it. Somebody else said, well, I don't want to do anything else that feels like a lot of, work, like a lot of effort. So in each instance, with each objection, of course, I have a response that's like, well, you don't need the job that you have. You need income. Needing income is not the same thing as needing the job where you are suffocating. That is the whole challenge here. The challenge is not whether or not you need money to pay your bills. Of course you do. That's just a rational thought, right? Like, got it. The challenge here is, do you have to subject yourself to the transactional suppressing of your authenticity and calling in order to pay your bills? Is that your best life? Well, I get to go on vacation. Great. So you live your life for the 1 week a year that you get to. No. You, as the beautiful human that you are, God put you here for a work. That work is not necessarily the thing you are currently doing, even if you've been doing it a long time, even if you think that's the only thing you can do. So the big pressure of this show is, why do you think that's all you get? Why do you think that all you get in this life is the thing that is suffocating you? Because everybody else has it? Now we're going with the herd mentality to supplement our angst against misery. Like, plainly put, we are now saying that because everybody else is willing to be miserable, I deserve to be miserable also. Would you ascribe that to your child? Would you ascribe that to anybody else that you cared about? No. But yet, here we are. I have to keep my job because I have these responsibilities. No, you need money because you have these responsibilities. You have a choice about where you spend your time, your effort, and your energy, and your talent, and your calling, because that is what you are giving away every time you go to work. So we ask questions here like, is it worth it? Is the place where you're working, is that worth it? Is that like a thing? Are they doing enough to support you? And are they so deeply and steeply rooted in the traditional perception of what corporate culture is that they don't even realize that they're causing harm? That's usually the case. Oh, well, we have to do it this way. This is the way business is done. Why? Who says? The core tenets of business is to measure and manage metrics to achieve objectives. Most places they call those KPIs, key performance indicators. Whoop-de-freaking-do. Everybody has a set of KPIs and they're working through them. The government, everybody has KPIs. Everybody has KPIs. Great. The how you reach those things is wildly up to the individual company. So it can be a function of culture to do things differently, non-traditionally, in an uncommon way. The non-traditional corporate culture is human-centered versus the traditional corporate culture that is machine-centered. Corporations developed around the machine era. Flick a switch, the machine does the work. Somebody monitors the machine, and that's how we ended up with shifts. Shift to monitor, shift to monitor, shift to monitor. That is where your work hours come from. Your work hours come from the industrial age where people had to monitor machines. That is how that happened. Does that mean it's still working? Maybe for some people, it's still working. Maybe for some companies, it's still working. Maybe the core business hours, because the company is global, that needs to happen. And also, by and large, it's really doing more to suck the life out of people than it is to make KPIs more efficient. The success model for every single company needs to be around the idea of efficiency. How do we achieve the goal to raise profit, which means faster and/or less expensively? And so it's really interesting to watch the solution to that being layoffs. Salaries are typically the highest cost inside of a company, right? So when you see a company that goes through a process of layoffs, and if you yourself have unfortunately been laid off, it wasn't likely an emotional decision. It was likely a function of trying to make the KPIs happen faster and less expensive. If they can't solve faster, typically they go for, how do we cut people out? Here is my whole crux about corporate culture and why I am advocating for the uncommon corporate culture that is human-centered more than it is anything else. There is an efficiency metric that's missing in the way that corporations allow you to do your work. They are not allowing you to consider what is most optimal for you. And by virtue of that, you are not giving yourself permission to consider what's most optimal for you. Your skill set is a tool, it's a resource. Your authenticity, let me define that here, is also a tool and a resource, but your authenticity, not in the way of, I talked to somebody the other day and they said to me, when I think of authenticity, I think of like being the same way over and over and over and over. No, that's consistency. It's not authenticity. Being the same way just means you've cultivated some habits. The people that get up every day and they go to the gym, my guy, Ashton, he gets up every day and he's a viral sensation. He's, amassed a tremendous following from doing the same thing every single day. Is that authentically who that man is? We don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea what God put this man here to do. And so that is how we define authenticity. Authenticity is the thing and person you were called and divinely crafted to be. You were called to do a work, you were crafted to be a way. That is your authenticity. Being that on repeat is really going to end up having you live your best life. Living a life where you are deeply attached to who you were created to be and doing the work you were called to do is going to be how you live your best life. Not that every day will be the best. I'm not promising you $20 million tomorrow. I am not doing either one of those things. I am saying that you will have rough days. I am saying that sometimes money will be weird, and all of that is still true and fine. And you will still be living the best version of your life because you will be doing so in alignment. So my point in all of that is there's an efficiency metric in the human capital that is being missed. So if a company is looking to track their KPIs, their key performance indicators, right? Why? Cheapest and fastest means greater profits, right? Company is here to make money. By nature, people don't make companies just, not make money. Even nonprofits are trying to make money to support a cause of some sort, right? So A to Z faster. That is what it is. And the Z is our KPI. The A is our starting point. And the A to Z in the middle, the B through whatever, is how we get there. When we are thinking about speed of doing the thing, sometimes there are variables that we can't control with the speed of doing the thing. So speed of doing the thing has something to do with, employees, your coworkers, they come to work late. They're not really doing their jobs. Not you. I know it's not you, your coworkers, right? They come to work late. They're not really doing their jobs. Things are backlogged in shipping. Things are taking longer than expected. There's 5 more steps that nobody accounted for. All of that stuff is just like, there's just variables. You know what I mean? Somebody quits and you can't, replace them immediately. Like all of that stuff creates variables. Things get stacked upon, each other. And so that creates a backlog. That's a time variable, right? Can't always control those. So what can you control? How much money you are spending to get to from A to Z. Where's the place that you can control that? You can control that in salaries. And that is why people get laid off. People get laid off because companies are looking at how do we get from A to Z faster and cheaper. And typically where they're spending the most money is in salary. So when things need to shift, they tend to lay people off, fire people. And it's an unfortunate thing. And so this is the whole thing. The piece of this puzzle that I think is missing from traditional corporate culture and the way that companies do things that is present in the uncommon model is understanding that humans have an efficiency kind of unknown variable in this equation. If getting to your KPI cheaper and faster from A to Z, if getting to the end result cheaper and faster is an equation, and the people that are working on the work to accomplish that are part of that equation, which they must be, unless your entire business is based on machines, but even then, somebody's got to babysit the machines, right? Like, from the beginning. If that is it, then the human is the variable. Creating an opportunity for that human to operate at its most optimal level, and I'm going to come back around and say this again, but creating an opportunity for that human, that variable to operate at its most optimal level is the piece that's missing. So here, let me put it here directly to you. If somebody gave you your most ideal working conditions, would you do more work? If you got to work on what you cared most about at the time of day where you felt most energized, in an environment where you felt most productive, in a way that felt most true to who you are and authentic to who you are, among the people, places, and things that matter most to you, could you in fact be more productive? There are things I physically cannot do in my office. Sometimes I need to be on a beach, on a boat, outside at a restaurant, hanging out, just among the energy. When you're somebody that has been a solopreneur for a super long time and you don't really believe, office culture has not really been your thing, you've got to pay attention to how you work best, right? So it took me a long time to realize this, but there are certain things I just can't. Lots of paperwork? Oh, honey, no. I need bright lights. I need to be outside somewhere. It needs to be something and I need to have something to look forward to after it's over. And because I have only worked for myself in the past almost 20 years, I get to make that choice. Took me a long time to realize I needed that. So I'm coming to you now and asking you, think about that for a minute. Right now, you are required to work a certain way. Most of you, not all of you, but most of you, you have requirements around your job. You have to work from 9 to 3. because you have to be there during the core business hours. You have to come in 2 days a week. You have to do the commute. You have to be online. You have to be on camera. All these have tos suck out pieces of your authenticity, and that's that transactional suppression. Well, they're paying me, so I must be less. I'm an introvert, and the way that my trauma generally is set up, I don't want to be on camera. I'm just saying, if that's you, but you're required to be on camera. It's probably the most gut-wrenching hour of your life. And so now you find yourself disassociating from your own body just to be present at your job. These are real things that I think traditional corporate culture completely neglects. You know why it neglects it? Because it does not account for its people first. It accounts first for KPIs. KPIs always come first in traditional business models and corporate cultures. And unfortunately, measuring in business is necessary, 100%. I guarantee that if more companies took you into account first, they would get better results. So regardless of the industry that you work in, it is important for you to know, and I guess that's also part of this podcast, pulling back the curtain on what business models look like and why people are doing these silly things. And also to let you know, you don't need to have 3,000 meetings. Honestly, I've said it in another episode, if you're having 30 meetings a week about the same blessed thing, that is an unclarified corporate culture that has no direction, and also an unclarified brand, because there's nothing to talk about that much. Nothing. And requiring people to come to meetings, what does that do for you? Do you feel your best and most productive sitting in the meetings, or are the meetings just taken away from your ability to actually execute the task? Do you find that you need to stay up late at night? Are you suppressing the dreams and things that you have been thinking about because you don't have the energy left because you've spent all day disassociating just to exist so you could get this paycheck? Transactional suppression. Transactional suppression is the entire point of this whole thing. You are worth more than just getting a paycheck and losing yourself in the process. Do you need a paycheck? Yes, 100%. Absolutely, 1,000%. You need to pay your bills. You need to take care of your wife. You need to, not have to work XYZ thing. You need all those things. You need the stability. All the stuff needs to happen. What we're challenging today, right now, is the how that happens. How that happens is your choice. That is what we're coming to unearth. How you get the paycheck is your choice. And if you need to make a different choice, I encourage you to start with this question: am I being suppressed with my paycheck? Am I being asked to be less every day, all the time, just so that I can have this money in my bank account? Just because it's what's happening doesn't make it correct. Even though it has been normalized, that's not correct. Hey, thanks for tuning into the Uncultured Podcast. I've been your host, Shauna K. Henson, lifestyle design coach, goal strategist, and corporate culture consultant. If this is your first time here, make sure you like, subscribe, and share this with somebody you know. If you're coming back for more, thanks so much for being here, and I hope that you'll tune in again. No matter what you're doing in your life, remember to make intentional choices, and wherever you are starting, remember that's not where you have to finish. Your life is yours alone, and your next dream is only one goal strategy away from getting exactly what you desire.